Hello, guys. This is Mo, and it's our second episode in our user-centric design course. Today, we're gonna cover the user-centric design user definition and development of that user in the context of product design. So last time we talked about UCD as a definition, as a theoretical definition. What is UCD and what is not UCD? Today we're going to cover who is the user and how to define that user and how to develop that user in the product design journey. So the user definition is very interesting, and one of the things that I'm always debating with my team and my design team is that the user is not the customer. So the user is the person or the being or the entity that uses the product, does not buy the product per se. They could be the same. So if you buy your mobile phone and you're a person that earns their own money, yes, in this case, the user is the customer. If I'm buying a new mouse, I am the user and I am the customer at the same time. But this is not always the case. This is sometimes the case. And another thing that we talked or we tapped on last time was that the user is not always human, or is not always of human nature, right? So it could be an animal, or it could be a plant. It could be a human as well, but in this case, it's not a rule. So keep it in your mind, user is not always equal to customer. The customer is the one that pays, and these are the nice Egyptian bills I'm always proud to show. And the user is not always human. So like the case of this dog and this nice toy in its mouth, this is a very clear example of a user is not is not human. And another thing that you need to keep in mind, even though the user sometimes is human, you need to consider it like they are like human is a very big array of personas, and we're going to talk about this in a second. And another interesting thing, another important thing to talk about is that for many products, the user is not a single user. There are multiple users. And we're going to cover that in more detail in the anthropometrics and the ergonomics part later in that same course. But you need to always remind yourself whom else is using that product, because you will be surprised. Sometimes there is a primary user, there is a secondary user, and so on. And sometimes there is a direct user and an indirect user. And this is another interesting thing. So there is a direct product interactor, person that uses the product directly, and there is an indirect interactor as well to that same physical product, right? So I'm gonna just put a pin there. I will not discuss this right now, but with some examples, it will be super clear to everyone what we're trying to achieve here. So time for a quick quiz. So just to keep it a little bit more interactive, again, as said, it's not for me very easy to have this in front of a camera and not seeing your faces and your reactions. So I'm gonna try to play this game with you, like e-game, if you will. So these are 3 water bottles of 3 different sizes, obviously. And you see the left one, which is the typical 1.5 liters, the middle one, which is, I don't know how many liters this is, but like it's probably 300 or 400. And there is the one on the far right, which is the 20 liter gallon. Okay, so I'm gonna just give you like 10 seconds now to think who are the possible users of the below products. Again, remind yourself, the user is not the customer always. The user it does not necessarily need to be human. there could be multiple users that coexist, and the user could be a direct and an indirect interactor with the physical object. Okay, so I'm gonna go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Let's review the answers. So for the first bottle, the user, as you probably have guessed, any person who is drinking from that water bottle is a direct user, right? That's perfect, spot on. So for that particular user, if I'm gonna think about what possibly could be needed for that user, I would be thinking, okay, grip, the water bottle should have the grip of a human being. User here is definitely a human, unless you have a very well-trained dog, I guess. And second would be the grip of the water bottle cap. Third could be the friction or the surface of the bottle itself, how sturdy it is, how squishy it is to hold or not to hold, or how not to squish. It's like whatever the right terminology would be here, etc. But definitely that's a user. The second user that probably you would overlook at least the first time would be that there is a waiter. Yes, some water bottles you just buy and you serve yourself, right? But most of the time, these particular water bottles are served in restaurants. So this particular product will be handled indirectly by a waiter or a waitress, and they would be carrying that particular water bottle on a tray, serving it to you on a tray. So for that particular product, it needs to balance well, either on its base, as like this is the tray and this is the water bottle and this is its base, or it need to be like lying flat in a nice way, because we've seen it a lot as well, at least in Egyptian restaurants. It's very common. You see a waiter like carrying like 6 of those, because there is no possible way to put them on a tray and balance them. They're not very stable, and they're heavy too, right? So like I would say 4 of those will be 6 kilos. And in this case, this guy or lady will need to really walk around with this 6 kilos, like very flimsy bottles shaking on top of the tray. So what I'm trying to say here is, what you need to think about is like, okay, who's going to drink the water bottle? Typically, you don't drink from the water bottle like that, except if it's like yours at home. And if it's in a restaurant, that user, which is the waiter or waitress, will need to handle it over the tray, handle it over the actual dinner table, where like they're gonna pour like in every cup, etc. So you need to think about these aspects: the balancing of it on the tray, and the ease of handling of pouring into glasses, etc. It might like sound trivial, but we once had that particular customer, or actually client in Sand product design, and they like explicitly requested that the water bottles could be handled with more ease than the current conventional ones. And I will not disclose the name of the client, but I would tell you this was one of the most fun projects I've worked on, because it unlocked in our heads as designers like a lot of ways to look at the very easy, mundane, simple task as like pouring water and handle it over a tray, and to really think about how to improve such a very familiar product that you see in your life every day. The second one, you could have guessed, yes, this is a smaller water bottle. So probably this is designed for children, right? So smaller humans, as I like to call them. And like in this case, it's easier for them to drink. It's either easier for them to take in their like school backpacks, etc. But again, do not forget about the indirect user in this case, which is the mom or the dad that could possibly put this particular water bottle in their backpacks or in their handbags, because the kids typically in their like in family outings and so on, they don't have their backpacks, right? At least in Egypt, right? So typically the task of carrying the water bottles fall on the parents, right? So again, think product, direct user, obvious, very obvious. Okay, you could think about it in 3 seconds and just get it. And there is the indirect one. And surprise, surprise, who's in this particular slide? Who's the customer? It's the parent. Who is the user? It's the kid, right? So again, customer, user, not the same. Of course, you could argue and say, yeah, but I drink from these little ones all the time. Okay, like that's your choice. But they're gonna be like, if I'm drinking from that, it's gonna be done. Like I'm gonna be done like in 2 seconds, right? So, like that's on you. But you got the point. So the third water bottle, which is the gallon, which is the 20 kilos, the one that you usually, or 20 liters, which happens to be 20 kilos. This is the one that you typically buy from a supermarket. You take it with you home, you put it on the dispenser, and then you drink, right? So the ultimate user is this gentleman smiling, or this again, family of I don't know, 4 or 5 that are using this product at their home, right? That is the direct user. But in many of the supermarkets, there will be the people packing at the cashier, and these people usually help you take this particular gallon from the cashier to their car because they're like too heavy, right? I said 20 kilos. Especially if you're like getting 2 or 3 of those, like in this case, you need to think more about handling. So what I'm trying to say is that the user in this case is definitely the person drinking that particular water from that bottle, and the secondary indirect user, which could, in this case, this guy could lift it as well, right? So which could be the same person, but in some cases, but you need to think as a separate indirect user. The indirect user is the person that is carrying the bottle from point A to point B until the point of being used, right? So my point is, what I'm trying to say out of this, think in 3 ways. Think user versus customer, think direct versus indirect user, and think human versus non-human. User does not have to be human. User does not have to be the customer. And you could have a multitude of users and indirect users. Again, and in here, I didn't go back all the way to the factory floor where I said like, okay, this is the filling facility, this is the packing facility, this is the crating facility, this is the shipping facility. I didn't pull that thread all the way to the end, right? And I did that intentionally because I'm not here to design an entire factory. I'm here just to design that water bottle for that particular purpose, for that particular user. If you want to expand your horizon a little bit more and think, you could definitely find multitude of other indirect users during the handling of that bottle, through the filling facility, through the shipping, shipping and crating, and the logistics of sending it to the supermarket, and then unpacking it later on. Okay. So with that, there is another quiz if you wish. Again, with that known, with this, what we've just discussed and talked known, think about these 4 different products. And here, like, you have a diaper, headphones, a fork, either human, like adult size, or baby or kids sized. And I will not give you the typical 10 seconds now, but I'm just gonna go through with it. So with the diaper, I think it's very obvious now who's the customer and who's not, and who's the user. I think the customer is the parents, and in this case, the user is definitely the baby. For the headphones example, the user is the person that like puts the headsets on, but you could think about it as well, like who are the indirect users of that product could be the people around him or around her, that if you're designing these earmuffs to a point where it really is enclosed inside the sound system of the headphones so it doesn't leak outside, this is definitely a huge plus for the indirect user, um, which is the surrounding people to the actual user. So like that was just a way to tell you, nudge you to the right direction of, okay, think about this, think about that, and so on. So while if I'm designing this for the direct user, which is the person putting the headphones on, I'm gonna think, okay, the pads need to be like soft enough on the ears, soft enough on the skins. I will need to be able to open it and close it easily, but while easily, they need to, when they lock, they need to lock and not fall every time I'm running around or jumping at the gym, etc., etc. But you need to think about the surrounding environment, the surrounding people to that particular user. It will be a very good user experience if the user himself or herself is happy, but it will be a very negative experience if everybody around them actually hears what they're hearing, right? And I think the user themselves might be a little bit not happy with this fact as well, because it's privacy and all. Last but not least, the fork. With the fork, you could think about a lot of users, right? Direct users, I think the person eating with the fork, and whether it's a baby or an adult, and from the waiters to the washer, like the people that wash the fork in the kitchen, etc. They could be the same person. If it's at your house, you are the person who is eating with the fork and as well washing it, but not this. If it's a restaurant, in a restaurant, that would be definitely a different case. Another interesting thing that we usually face in the design of physical products is people forget that kids are not a miniature version of adults. So when you want to design something like this very nicely designed fork handle, you could see it very obviously that the contours of the curves of the fork itself is different, because the designer did their homework. They went ahead and they studied the actual anthropometrics of the other, like the child of that particular age group, and we're going to reach that in the next video. So, but for now, again, you have different views of different products. The user is not always the customer. The user is not always direct user. They could be indirect users, and the user could be human or non-human. Okay, with that, we will go to the next section, which is the user development. So the user development, and here I use the amazing diagram from the Lean Product Playbook by Dan Olsen, 2015 book. This book is amazing. I love that book. I had a lot of good experience with it, from it, and I learned a lot from Dan in this particular book of his. And it's amazing how he put everything in a very structured way. And I like this diagram very much because, and again, it's very close to my heart because I've used it myself in sand product design a lot during designing different products, different propositions to the market, as he's saying here. And you could again read the book. It's amazing. It's an audio format as well. So if you're one of these like me who likes to listen to audiobooks and so on, it's very useful, and it's very comprehensive, very detailed. And I'm not here trying to iterate and or like kind of capture the book's essence in a slide. The book is much more than that. But what I'm trying to say here, or refer to here, is basically the problem space and the solution space. Usually in the product development, you need there is the market with a certain specific problem, and there is the product that offers a certain solution, right? And with this, you start usually with the target customer, okay? And again, customer, user, not the same thing, right? Because if you decided that the target customer is going to buy the product that solves the user's issue, bingo, now you understand that diagram very well. But if you think, okay, I'm going to design a chair for the purchasing department, for the purchasing representative from that corporate, then you lost with the user. You just satisfied the cost constraint, hence cost-centric design, not human or user-centric design. Okay, so again, if I'm going to make a small correction here, target customer, it's very good as long as the customer is buying based on the user needs. And this is why Dan Olsen did in the second layer of the pyramid, the understand the needs. The needs here is definitely the user needs, not the customer. The customer is just the purchasing power of to buy the product. Sometimes it's the same, sometimes it's not. Just keep that in mind, okay? And then based on this, you design or you go ahead and you do a value proposition. We're going to talk about that in a sec. And then you take that and you do your feature set, and then you design on your user experience and your user interface design. Again, I'm not going to cover too much of this pyramid here, but you need to understand this product market fit idea, that you start with the target user and you understand the needs of that user, as we talked. So in order to do that, the market target customer, okay, and defining the target product and brainstorming product versus user is very important and very integral to how you get there, right? How you're going to get there, that is the most important point I want to discuss right now. So you have a very good diagram as well used in multiple product design books. They're talking about the user satisfaction and the current solution. With the current solutions, apologies. And there is the importance of user need. So usually when you have a need, again, lower part of the pyramid, problem, and you have a value proposition, you need to do this product market fit. So I'm like, is my product meeting, or is what I'm proposing meeting a need or not? This is a little bit abstract. In that pyramid format, it's a bit abstract. You cannot get there like easily. The easier way to think about it, okay, let's put every single product that I want to study versus the user need. Let's take something super simple, like, I don't know, like maybe a computer mouse. So user satisfaction with current solution, I'm gonna lay here every single mouse in the I don't know, in the price range I'm targeting, or in the user group I'm targeting. Again, user group is key here. And I'm gonna lay them in this nice quadrant. So I don't know how many buttons it has, whether it's laser or not, whether it's wireless or not. All of these different features, they're gonna play with you here a little bit. And then if the need is low and the satisfaction with the current solutions is high, it's not worth going after. So this means, let's take this quadrant, for example, where the need is low and the satisfaction is high. There is already, I don't know, like you're targeting to design a gaming mouse with, I don't know, XYZ features, etc. And there are like already not that much need for that product, because I don't know, like in the world, the people that actually need that particular mouse, they're like, I don't know, 1% of the gaming population, which is like not that big or important of a need. Or maybe you're designing a new 3D mouse that captures the essence of the character movement in the video game, and it has some certain haptic feedback, but this feature is not very important for the gamer, right? So even though there could be a mouse that gives that particular spectrum, it's either on the low side of importance because users don't need it that much, so it's here on that scale. But on the left to right, either like there is already a product in the market that satisfies that need, so check, done. You do not need to do anything. Or like no, it's there is something. It's of low performance, but that particular feature, again, is, as said, is not used that much. So it will not push you to the winning edge if you make it, because people, for them, that's very low importance. The second is if it's of high importance and like there's a lot of current solutions, again, becomes very competitive. Like again, since I picked the mouse example, let's take something more familiar now, like the mobile phones. The smartphone field or market right now is extremely competitive because the need is high and the solutions are many. So if you want to enter that market, it's going to be completely difficult. You need to really think about a market that does not have that much of competition. This is not an advice from me to exit competitive markets, but this is just to place yourself in this pyramid in a maybe a systematic process way. So what is a good example of like high needs and low solutions? I guess this is maybe in the field of the EV or like electric vehicle products. So right now you're gonna see like, yes, they're rising. They're now they're getting more and more as we are talking, but still not as many as the ICE or internal combustion engines, right? So you're gonna see that they're like the need is high. People are more going towards the green energy and trying to really get the electric vehicle technology up and running with all of the efforts from all of the good companies in this direction, but still the solutions that are offered are not many. So you're going to see that this is the opportunity area. This is where the people are usually comfortable playing. An area where users' needs are super high, the offerings in the market are not that many. So bingo, this is exactly where you need to play. Opportunity. This is where you play. So this is how you pick your product, more or less. If you want to design something new, if you want to design a new particular product, this is how you approach it. You think, is this a low need or a high need from a user? Then you place it in the spectrum. Then is there like current solutions? Yes or no? Then you start playing with that as well. Another thing, but this is, again, once you decide on the product, what features go in that product is another level of detail that you need to think about for that user, right? So for that particular user, I could have the basic of the basics in that particular product, and this is the must-haves. These are the features that you cannot live without. You cannot design let's a desk chair without the cushioning anymore. Done. You have to have the cushions. You have to have the padding. You have to have a comfortable. Let's not talk comfortable now. Like you have to have at least a cushion, right? That's a must-have. Then performance features, which are more is better. And this is, let's say, if I'm putting a cushion, how comfortable it is. Is it super uncomfortable? I'm just putting it to check a box, or it's like super comfortable. So I could advertise it as the most comfortable chair in the world. So performance benefits or performance is always talking about more is better. More is more. Like if you have a car, speed is the performance. If you have A camera, since I'm staring at one right now, like the number of the quality of the image or frames per second, more is better, right? And there is the final icing, which is the delighter. The delighter is the feature that you didn't expect in the product, but you just when you first use it or when you first see it, when you first navigate check it online, you're like, wow, that is something that is cool. That is so awesome. I want to get that product now. So again, since I'm staring at the camera right now, I cannot think of a better example. When I bought that like camera, it's a Logitech, and bottom line, found some nice other alternatives, played with the value proposition again in my head because like, okay, that's very competitive. So I had to navigate through my needs as a user, and I placed my user, like my criteria in a certain point with cost and investment and all of that. Then okay, I found a decent HD camera. Definitely it has like a lens, so it's a must have. It has a decent performance, so it's like here in the HD FPS kind of spectrum, or here maybe a little bit less. But the delighter for me was the camera on light. It has like two small arcs on the side that light up, and like they buzz around when you're not using the camera, but then they go full bright when you are recording. And then this was like, wow, this is like cool, right? Because you cannot miss that light. So you know when the camera is on and you know when you're recording. So again, back to the user, or back to the user development journey. So first you start with the target user, not customer, or if the customer cares about the user. Then you start thinking about the underserved needs. What are the needs that are not met in the market? Then you go to the value proposition with an offering, right? So what is your offering? What is your value proposition? And then you decide on the feature set. The feature set is decided on three levels. What are the must-haves? What are the performance? And what are the delighters? The must-haves are the items in the product that you cannot live without. For the car, it's like the mirrors. You cannot have, or the seatbelt. You cannot have a car without the seatbelt. Performance. The car has an engine, right? So has a motor, since we're talking about EVs. So the faster the motor, the more energy conservative it is, the more efficient it is, it's better, right? So performance is more is better. Whatever that feature is, the better, like the more of it is better, right? And then the delighter. You sit in your car, your new EV, and I don't know, you click on the start button, or you turn it on, and you hear like this like nice beep sound, or something that reminds you to like not forget your, yeah, I don't know, like your jacket, I don't know, something like that. So it depends on the product, but you need to work always from the user, then through the value proposition, then, or like the product market fit exercise, as Dan Olsen calls it, and the feature set is the one that follows after that. So how are you going to do that? You need to describe you the user. You need to put some life into that user. This user terminology is a little bit abstract. So you need to define that user. And how are you going to define that? You need to, like, there is a very nice tool. We're going to talk about it in a second. But the importance of that definition of that, who is the user in this case, is very important to make sure that the entire product team is focused on that same user. I'm not designing for this user and you're designing for the other user. Or I'm not designing for user A, I don't know, a fast EV, and you're designing for user B, a comfortable EV. These are two different cars. You cannot design two different cars in one team, right? And these collisions happen. When they happen, as a product design lead, you need to take the team back. Hey guys, let's check who is our user, and then take that as a step back, and we take it from there. So based on the user definition, you're going to know who is the right user, and accordingly take decisions on the features and the importance of those features in your product based on that user. And how are you going to do that? Through the nice tool of personas. Personas is something that you always hear about as a product designer. It's very interesting. It is very cool to think about. It's basically you're putting a character that is typical to use your product on a piece of paper. That is basically what you're going to do. You're going to take that character or personality projection of your imagination and they say like, okay, who is the typical person who's going to use that product? And you're going to think about that product and think about that person, and you try to imagine that hypothetical person and put it on a piece of paper. A typical template is something like this. It goes like, I don't know, like who's the name of the person? Done. What is a personal code for that person? Job title, picture, some demographics, gender, age, nationality, region, psychographic, behavior, needs, innovation adoption, etc., etc. And we're going to talk about innovation adoption in a second because I need the chart to explain that in more details. But what is the motivations of that person? What is the attitude, behaviors, frustration and pain points with the current products? Level of expertise and knowledge with the product usage and context. And again, I said hypothetical, but I did not say imaginary. And I will talk about that in a second, because the way you develop a good persona is not by sitting inside a building and talking to your design team and just inventing a character. No, it doesn't work that way. The way you do it is through interviews. You do a lot of interviews. But then with these interviews, you start bundling your users into different personas based on their attitudes, behaviors, again, behaviors towards the product. And this is a very good, filled persona of, we were developing at this point in time a selfie stick. We were designing a new selfie stick. Back in the day, this was cool and new. Now I know it's not. So the name, again, we call her Nadine. Personal code, food and friends are nothing else. I don't know, something like this. So this is a very outgoing person. Her job, she's a banker. She works in a bank. She's a social butterfly. She's a female, 24 years old. She's Egyptian. So since we're developing it in the Egyptian market, she's from North Egypt, so in Alexandria to be specific. She enjoys going out with friends, working out, etc. So why is this all relevant? I'm developing a selfie stick. Yes, because with all of this, you're going to understand the motives and the context and the environments where you're going to be using the selfie stick. A selfie stick, so the needs are a selfie stick with a stand and a remote shutter. This was the resolution we ended up with. And why we arrived to this is because this particular demographic, this particular persona of a user is an early majority. So an early majority in the innovation adoption life cycle, it's an amazing life cycle. You could check it out as well in the book, Crossing the Chasm, and it's talking about these different user groups or user mindsets. So there's the innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. And the early majority are the people that would buy the product in the technology life cycle after the innovators and the early adopters. The innovators adopt the technology when it's still clunky and not very well tweaked and tuned and still has bugs and stuff. So think about the beta version of the product, and very early, I would say, I don't know, I owned the 3D printer myself at the beginning of the 3D printing hype, and I was one of these people who was troubleshooting for 10 hours to do a 2 hours print. I don't know, something like that. And this is a typical innovator mindset. You just go ahead and okay, I'm gonna try it out, and I'm gonna report the kinks and the issues and the errors to the developers and iterate and iterate and iterate. Early adopters, okay, they come slightly after the innovators, but they are more of okay, we want to play it safe, but we as well want to look cool and like futuristic, and we adopt new things. We want to own stuff while they're still not in others' hands and stuff, right? Early majority, like they want to have the stuff that work, but they are as well having that tendency of buying stuff where like still relatively new. They're not late. Then the late majority is like they will not touch anything unless it's well proven, very popular, having, I don't know, 4,000 ratings, 4.5 stars on Amazon. I don't know, like these are the late majority. And then the laggards, these are the people that will not move technology unless they have to. Typical for me, at least, for like was with my parents and the move to smartphones. They didn't move to smartphones until like the only options on the market were touchscreen phones with no buttons. This was the point. They were like, they had to migrate from the phones with the buttons to the touch phones later on. So again, sorry, this is a very small crash course on the innovation adoption lifecycle. Maybe we could do a separate video on it later, but this is how it works. So again, back to Nadine. Nadine is an early majority. So a typical thing for Nadine as a person is to go ahead and explore things. So, but as well, she will not be, it needs to be still safe. It needs to be well tested. It still needs to be well priced. She's not the innovator who's gonna pay, I don't know, like $300 for a new selfie stick. No, she's gonna be the reasonably priced $50, $60 selfie stick with a remote shutter, but it has to be stable because she goes out. She enjoys working out. She goes to the gym, so she probably likes to take some social media videos of herself like working out. She goes in group gatherings, so she needs a remote shutter so she doesn't take these like super awkward close selfies, etc. So think about that, and think about the motivations. She wants to be a fashion model, so probably she does some I don't know, home photo shoots of her like newly acquired dress or something. She's a social media savvy. She will be the first person to know about the feature on Facebook, Instagram, or whatever now is being used, and gonna apply it very quickly, very immediately to herself, right? She uses her, like the product uses usage context, which is something very important. Where are we imagining Nadine to be working, like using the product? And from all of that, you could easily deduce during fitness or outings, and that's it, right? Like, and maybe sometimes at home, as we just mentioned. The important thing to know about this is you get this through two very easy methods. One is one-to-one interviews. You could definitely build an entire persona of an entire person from an interview. That's super common, super easy. You could just like, okay guys, we're having a focus group. We need this demographic, this demographic, this demographic. Arrange it, get them to your design firm, sit with them, offer them some nice, like snacks and beverages, and do the interview with them. And you're gonna discover all of a sudden that like for a certain demographic that you're designing for, you're gonna find, okay, I have like 2 or 3 personas. The person, the purpose of having a picture and a name is usually during the design cycle, you're gonna say, but I'm designing this feature for Nadine. Even though Nadine is not real, Nadine is just a shorthand or a shortcut for that particular persona. Adding a picture helps you to humanize the user, right? But we insist not to use actual photos because of privacy and all, and sometimes as well it like, I don't know, like you take your relative or your friend for these demographic studies, and you don't want that like to be staring at their photo for like the next 6 months of development, right? So nobody wants that. The thing is, you just need to humanize. And the thing I just mentioned with the interviews, you do a lot of cycles, a lot of iterations of interviews, but all of a sudden you're gonna realize that, I don't know, out of these 15 interviews, you came out with 3 personas, because you just need the personas that will actually potentially be users for you, whether direct or indirect, whether human or non-human, as we talked, and you need to understand that. The second tool that is for me less powerful, less impactful than interviews is surveys. Again, the surveys are a very interesting tool for mass gatherings, mass data gathering, but it's not very qualitative. It's very quantitative. You could get, as I like, the average of a person in a community has 2.3 children, but nobody actually has 2.3 children, right? So this is the power of the survey, but as well the Achilles heel, the issue, the drawback of the survey. So if you want to use them, use the survey to gather quantitative data. I don't know, like age groups who are interested, how much they're willing to pay, which is WTP. We could cover it later on in another training or course, etc., etc. So you could hone which user groups we're gonna, or like demographics we're gonna interview, then take them to the interviews, and with the interviews you do the persona development. Any, like the weak persona, like that's a good persona. What is a weak persona? The weak persona lacks real customer data, lacks real user interviews. If you don't have the user interview, you don't know the person. You don't know the user. You don't understand them. When we were designing a cream packaging, we interviewed a lot of teenagers because the product was aimed at teenagers. And you're going to be super surprised what are their priorities once you sit and talk with them. For them, I don't know, like they want to have a package, like a cream package that you could open with one hand, because on the other hand, they're on the phone. It's like, this is something you never get from a survey. This is only you get when you give them a bunch of prototypes. At this stage, this was like a later stage of interviews when, like, I'm going to talk about them maybe in the design cycle course. But the idea is the guy was basically on the phone trying to flip open the entire package to take some cream out while on the phone. It's like, this inspired us. Okay, then we need to have and then we understood, we talked, we probed a little bit more. Then we designed that feature in later on, so that the lid, when you just click it with one hand, it just opens up with the elasticity that comes from the plastic. So it is very useful, and at the same time very inspiring to sit with them. You will never get all of the information you need from the desk on your computer, from Google, from Amazon data, from whatever data platform you're gathering your user data from. You have to sit with the user. You have to sit and develop personas, and you have to prototype them. And this is the last sentence I have there, right? You have to design you create a persona, you do a design cycle, you prototype, you refine, you sit with the real people again, and then you refine. And it's an iterative process. You cannot go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to do interviews just once, develop the personas that just once, and that's it. No, the personas have to be refined as you go, because maybe at the beginning you discover like that Nadine is, I don't know, like she just uses the selfie stick for fashion modeling and stuff. But later on you discover like it's like fashion is just a hobby, or like the side use, but the actual use is the group gathering thing. Or and this emphasizes the remote shutter or the Bluetooth shutter button that you could take it out of the selfie stick. So I think that's the kind of episode 2 is done. Again, the references, as I mentioned before, are listed there. I'm not going to read them again, but the idea here is please read through them, and if you have any questions, let me know. And until we see each other next time, have a good one, and see you soon. Bye.